updates, and exclusive content. For more information, visit www.skylinetv.ng. Skyline News, beyond the headlines.
We really apologize for the slowdown in transmission. Good morning and welcome to Morning Recap. I am Moreno Haniel. We move straight to the news now. Suspected thugs on Wednesday attacked the convoy of Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke shortly after his visit to the palace of Ataoja of Osogbo Obajimo Yetunji, triggering an exchange of gunfire with the governor's security personnel. The shooting, which lasted for about 12 to 15 minutes, occurred shortly after Adeleke left the palace hall where he had met with the monarch. Adeleke had arrived at the Ataoja's palace at about 3:15 p.m. in a motorcade of about 20 vehicles, leaving Osun headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Osogbo, where he received his certificate of return following his re-election. Nigeria's political landscape is entering new phase as 2027 presidential campaign season officially began yesterday, setting the stage for what is expected to be one of the country's most watched electoral protests. President Bola Tinubu is seeking second term under All Progressive Congress, while opposition figures including former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi are expected to mount strong challenges as political parties begin taking their campaigns to the electorate. Mohammed Musa has more on the details.
The commencement of the campaign season means political parties and their candidates can now intensify their efforts to win the support of millions of Nigerian voters ahead of the 2027 general elections. For the ruling APC, the campaign is expected to focus on Tinubu administration's economic reforms, infrastructure development, and efforts to attract investment. The party is likely to present these policies as evidence of progress under the current administration. For the opposition, the emphasis is expected to be on the challenges facing ordinary Nigerians, including the cost of living, unemployment, insecurity, and concerns over purchasing power. Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi remain prominent figures in opposition camp, while other political actors and parties are also positioning themselves ahead of the election. The campaign period is expected to generate intense political debate across the country, with Nigerians closely watching the programs, promises, and policy alternatives being presented by various candidates. As the election approaches, political parties are also being urged to ensure that their campaigns remain issue-based, peaceful, and within the provisions of Nigeria's electoral laws. I am Muhammad Musa, reporting for Skyline.
As political activities gather momentum ahead of the 2027 general elections, former head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, retired, has advised the political class against character assassination, personal attacks, and inflammatory rhetoric. Abdulsalami, who was represented by the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Martin Luther Agwai, retired, gave the advice in Abuja at the signing of the National Peace Accord ahead of the official commencement of campaigns for the presidential and National Assembly election. Inflame political tensions and create an atmosphere capable of triggering intimidation and violence during the electoral process.
It is an accord that calls on political parties and candidates to compete fairly on the issue of ideas, policies, and programs, debate opposition views respectfully, mobilize supporters peacefully and responsibly, protect voters and respect electoral institutions, and reject hate speech, incitement, misinformation, and other form of spiteful narrative that will lead to intimidation and violence.
Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Joash Amopitan, called on political parties and candidates to make issues, policies, and programs the center of their campaign ahead of next year's polls. He said the National Peace Accord provides a framework for fair competition, respectful debate, peaceful mobilization, and the protection of voters and electoral institutions. He urged political actors to reject hate speech, incitement, misinformation, and narratives capable of triggering violence and undermining electoral integrity.
Elections for the 2027 general election intensify. We are witnessing a disturbing shift from policy-driven engagement towards character assassination, identity-based provocation, and inflammatory rhetorics. If left unchecked, this trend threatens to poison the public square, erode civil trust, and ignite avoidable conflict across our societies.
The Inspector General of Police Olatunji Disu was represented by Umar Nadada, said the credibility and peaceful conduct of polls are not determined by election day alone, but depend largely on the conduct of political parties, candidates, supporters, and other stakeholders throughout the electoral process. The police chief therefore called for political campaigns to be a contest of ideas, policies, programs, and competing visions for the future of the country, rather than a platform for intolerance, incitement, ethnic polarization, or violence.
A political campaign should be a contest of ideas, policies, programs, and competing visions for the future of our country.
Bishop Matthew Kuka urged political party leaders, presidential candidates, campaign councils, and spokespersons to make the concerns of Nigerians the center of their campaign, warning them to shun fake news, personal abuse, and inflammatory statements. With the 2027 campaign now in motion, stakeholders are demanding new standard of political engagement, one driven by ideas, accountability, and issues that matter to Nigerians. Moreno Haniel for Skyline News.
The Independent National Electoral Commission has assured Nigerians and political parties that it will not favor any presidential candidate or political party in the 2027 general election. INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amopitan gave the assurance as political activities intensify nationwide and parties begin mobilizing supporters ahead of the polls. Mohammed Musa has more on the report.
The Electoral Commission says its responsibility is to provide a credible and transparent electoral process in which every candidate and political party is treated fairly. The assurance comes at a time when political parties are stepping up their preparations and candidates are beginning to reach out to voters across the country. INEC is expected to play a central role in the organization of the elections, from voter registration and the release of electoral guidelines to conduct of the polls and declaration of results. The Commission has also called on political parties and their supporters to respect the electoral process and avoid actions capable of undermining public confidence. The issue of electoral credibility is expected to remain a major subject of discussion as the election draws closer. INEC says it will work within the law and provide the necessary environment for Nigerians to exercise their constitutional right to choose their leaders. I am Muhammad Musa, reporting for Skyline News.
The All Progressive Congress. The All Progressive Congress is preparing for a nationwide campaign as political parties intensify mobilization ahead of the 2027 general elections. The ruling party is expected to take its campaign to states and communities across the country, with President Bola Tinubu's administration, economic policies and infrastructure programs expected to feature prominently in its message to voters. Oyika Denika joins us now with more on this report.
The APC is expected to use the campaign period to highlight what is described as achievements of the Tinubu administration since it assumed office. Economic reforms, investment, infrastructure development, and efforts to improve government revenue are expected to form part of the party's campaign narrative. The ruling party is also likely to face questions from voters over the effect of economic reforms on households. The ruling party is also likely to face questions from voters over the effect of economic reforms on households, particularly the rising cost of essential goods and services. Security will equally feature prominently as political parties seek to convince Nigerians that they have the right strategies to tackle terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and other forms of violent crime. The APC's nationwide mobilization will see party leaders and supporters engage with voters at different levels as the party seeks to consolidate its political strength ahead of the presidential and other elections. The coming months are therefore expected to witness increased political activities across the country. Dan Eka Oiza for Skyline TV News.
Nigeria's opposition parties face a major challenge as preparation for a 2027 presidential election intensify, with political leaders under pressure to present a strong alternative to the ruling All Progressive Congress. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi remain among the major opposition figures attracting national attention, but questions remain over the ability of opposition parties to unite behind a common platform.
The opposition landscape remains highly competitive, with several political interests seeking to influence the direction of the 2027 presidential contest. Atiku Abubakar, who contested the 2023 presidential election, remains a major political figure, while Peter Obi continues to command significant support following his performance in the last presidential election. However, the absence of a clearly consolidated opposition structure could make it difficult for the opposition to present a single candidate capable of challenging the APC's nationwide political machinery. The ruling party is expected to capitalize on its incumbency and organizational structure as it campaigns for President Tinubu's re-election. For the opposition, the major challenge will be convincing Nigerians that it can provide effective solutions to the country's economic and security problems. Issues including inflation, unemployment, insecurity, and the cost of living are expected to dominate the debate as voters begin to assess the different political options ahead of the 2027. I am Muhammad Musa for Skyline News.
The federal government, states, and 774 local government councils have shared a total of 3.007 trillion naira from the Federation account for July 2026. The latest allocation represents one of the highest monthly distributions recorded this year and is expected to provide additional financial resources for the 3 tiers of government. The federal government says it is taking steps to strengthen Nigeria's security and information environment ahead of 2027 general elections. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says government remains committed to creating the conditions necessary for peaceful and credible, transparent elections. We'll take a break now. We'll be back after the break. Thank you so much.
Watch Skyline News on MyComSat and Free TV. Stay connected wherever you are by streaming us live on the Free TV app available for both iOS and Android devices via the App Store and Google Play. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Skyline TV News for breaking news, updates, and exclusive content. For more information, visit www.skylinetv.ng. Skyline News, beyond the headlines.
You can watch Skyline News on NightComSat and Free TV. Stay connected wherever you are by streaming us live on the Free TV app, available for both iOS and Android devices via the App Store and Google Play. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Skyline TV News for breaking news, updates, and exclusive content. For more information, visit
Thank you for staying with us. President Bola Tinubu has challenged Nigerian universities to move beyond predominantly certificate-based education system and focus more on producing job creators. The president says universities must prepare students for an economy increasingly shaped by technology, innovation, and artificial intelligence. The call comes amid concerns about graduate unemployment and growing gap between academic qualifications and skill demand by employers. We move to the northern part of the country, where the Kano state government has launched a 27.8 billion naira ICT and computer-based test project amid expanding digital examination facilities across the state. The initiative is designed to take computer-based examinations and related digital infrastructure closer to the students, particularly those outside major urban centers. Officials say the project is expected to improve access to digital learning and examinations while helping students become more familiar with technology-driven assessment. We move to insecurity now. At least 570 people were killed in 596 security incidents recorded across Nigeria in July, according to reports by security intelligence firm Sari Global. The report indicated rural banditry, terrorism, and other violent crimes among the major threats recorded during the month. The figures have renewed concerns over the country's security situation, particularly as Nigeria approaches the 2027 election season. The growing threat of school abduction continues to raise concern across Nigeria, with terrorists and bandit groups using kidnapping as a tool for ransom and psychological warfare. Recent attacks have highlighted the vulnerability of schools in parts of northern Nigeria, where students and staff remain targets for criminal groups. Security agencies face increasing pressure to protect educational institutions and prevent further disruptions of schooling in communities affected by insecurity. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA) has arrested 80 suspected drug offenders during the raid on drugs joint in Kano State. The agency also dismantled 16 locations described as notorious drug joints during the operation. The operation formed part of the efforts by security and law enforcement agency to disrupt drug trafficking and abuse, which officials say contribute to crime and insecurity. Delta State has inducted the SSV Kali 3 security support vessel as part of efforts to combat oil theft, illegal bunkering, and other maritime crimes. The vessel is expected to strengthen surveillance of waterways and protect critical oil and gas infrastructure in Niger Delta. Authorities say the initiative will complement ongoing security operations aimed at protecting Nigeria's energy assets and reducing crude oil losses. Still on security, Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Wadi Shaibu has urged the Nigerian Army Combat Service Support Corps to strengthen logistic support for military operations. The Army leadership said effective logistics remain essential to sustaining troops and ensuring operational readiness. The directive comes as the military continues operation against terrorism, banditry, and other forms of insecurity across several parts of the country. More stories after the break. Please do stay with us.
www.skylinetv.ng. Skyline News, beyond the headlines.
Thank you for staying with us. Move to business now. Nigeria's Federation account recorded a significant revenue increase in July, allowing the three tiers of government to share 3.7 trillion. Statutory allocations rose by 658.09 billion, while gross VAT revenue recorded a slight decline during the period. The increased allocation provides additional fiscal space for the federal government, states and local councils as they grapple with rising expenditure and development needs. Nigeria's crude oil production has continued to rise, with production reportedly reaching about 1.67 million barrels per day in July. The improvement comes amid efforts to reduce pipeline losses and strengthen security around oil producing areas. The increase is important for government revenue and foreign exchange earnings, with oil remaining a major source of Nigeria's dollar income. Still in the economy, the National Economic Council has approved the refinancing of an oil-backed financing facility leads to NNPC Limited. The refinancing package is valued at about $4.5 billion and is aimed at restructuring existing oil-backing financing. The move comes as Nigeria continues efforts to strengthen the finances of its petroleum sector and improve the country's fiscal position. The cost of living remains one of the major economic issues confronting Nigeria as the country enters another election cycle. Although the government reforms have attracted investor interest and improved some macroeconomic indicators, households continue to face pressure from high prices and power. The economic situation is expected to become one of the biggest campaign issues, with political parties likely to offer competing solutions to the inflation, also employment and household hardship. We move to the foreign news now, where U.S. President Donald Trump says there are currently no talks scheduled with Iran despite statement from Tehran, suggesting that Washington is seeking negotiations. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has accused the United States of wanting to negotiate after failing to achieve its objective through military pressure. The conflicting statement comes as tensions remain high over the war and the status of the strategically important Strait of Hormuz. Still on the Strait of Hormuz, the path remains at the center of growing tensions between Iran and the United States, with both sides giving conflicting accounts of the situation in the strategic waterway. Washington maintains that the waterway is open, while Tehran says it remains under Iranian control. The dispute is being closely monitored by global energy markets because the strait is a major route for international oil shipments. We'll move straight to Israel. At least 6 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza on Tuesday, according to Palestinian health officials. The attack came shortly after U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy, Jared Kushner, concluded a regional visit aimed at advancing efforts to end the war. The latest violence has raised further concerns about the prospect of durable ceasefire, despite renewed diplomatic efforts to bring the conflict to an end. Still on the foreign news, Liberia has agreed to accept as many as 1,200 third country deportees from the United States over the next 12 months. The first group, reportedly numbering to 20 people, is expected to be transferred under the new arrangement. The arrangement is part of wider U.S. efforts to find countries willing to receive deportees who are not citizens of the receiving nation. South Korea's Foreign Minister Chung Hyun says U.S. President Donald Trump's actions appear to be putting pressure on Seoul over Iran and investment issues. The comments come amid border diplomatic tensions surrounding the U.S. conflict with Iran and Washington's efforts to secure international support. South Korea is expected to balance its relationship with Washington with its own economic and security interests as the international situation develops. We move to sports now. From Manchester United and Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba is set to leave Monaco after the French club agreed to terminate his contract. The decision comes after a difficult period for the midfielder, which has included a series of injuries. Pogba's departure now leaves the former World Cup winner facing another major turning point in his career as he continues his next move. Still on sports now, Arsenal could consider offers for young England's international Miles Lewis Kelly and Ethan Nwaneri if the right opportunity emerges. Club chief executive Richard Garlick said Arsenal is not actively seeking to sell the two players, but will consider departures under suitable circumstances. The development is likely to attract attention from clubs monitoring Arsenal's young talents as new European football season gets underway. Coming back to Nigeria, where the Super Falcons are expected to have a new head coach before their 2028 Women's Olympic qualifying campaign begins in October. The move follows the team's disappointing WAFCON campaign and growing calls for the changes in women's national team setup. The new coach will face the immediate task of rebuilding the squad and preparing the Falcons for the Olympic qualification campaign. More stories after the break. Please do stay with us.
Watch Skyline News on Nicomsat and Free TV. Stay connected wherever you are by streaming us live on the Free TV app available for both iOS and Android devices via the App Store and Google Play. Follow us on all our social media platforms.
Thank you for staying with us. Now we leave sports and we move to entertainment news, where Nigeria's own queen of Afrobeat, Tiwa Savage, has reached another massive career milestone after officials' reports confirmed her groundbreaking global deal with the Sony Music Entertainment. This major move expands her international reach, giving her unparalleled creative decision and distribution power across global territories. Industry insiders are already calling this one of the most lucrative deals for an African female artist this decade, setting a new brand benchmark for Afrobeats on the world stage. From music, we move to Nigerian movies, where Nollywood powerhouse Funke Akindele continues her unstoppable dominance at the cinemas as her latest blockbuster release, The Market Queen, has officially broken the all-time opening box office record in Nigeria. Tickets sold out across major theaters nationwide over the weekend, surpassing her previous record-breaking releases. Industry analysts attribute this unprecedented success to the film's gripping storytelling, vibrant cultural accuracy, and Akindele's unrivaled marketing genius across the border in the West Africa. This is all we have for on the morning recap. Thank you for staying with us. I am Moreno Haniel. Do have a very good day.